last years of the 19th century, that human affairs were being watched from the timeless worlds of space. No one could have dreamed we were being scrutinized as someone with a microscope studies creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. Few men even considered the possibility of life on other planets. And yet, across the gulf of space, minds immeasurably superior to ours regarded this Earth with envious eyes. And slowly and surely, they drew their plans against us.
Broadcasting live
from a tiny studio somewhere in North America.
This is Dark Matters Radio Live. And now I give you your host,
the silverback of ufology.
Here's Don Ecker.
And gang, here we are back from the abyss. And hey, it is great to be back on KGRA. I'm telling you, it's great. Now, with Dark Matters back on the air, and actually we've been on a few weeks, it is in many regards similar to what it was prior to my injury a few years ago when I had to quit the show because of physical problems. But back in those days, we often had my buddy Richard Saraday on, along with my other buddy, Mr. Mark Center. Mark was our computer whiz, and we'd be sitting there talking about various items and incidents and cases. And Mark in the background would be pecking away, and within seconds, he would have the whole damn thing ready to go. Well, Mark is back, and my buddy that is co-hosting this along with the rest of the show, a guy that I met, well, back in about 2006 or 7. We kind of lost touch for a while, and then this past year, out of the blue, I get a note from him, and he said, "God, Don, I'm glad you're not dead." And, well, yeah, I'm not dead. Mr. Gary Kissel. Gary and Mark, come on on the screen. There they are. And, guys, it's great to have you. We got a hell of a show.
Still glad you're not dead.
Yeah, well, so am I. Yeah, so am I. Although, I got to tell you, I had something, and I mentioned it in passing on my Facebook page a few days ago. I had something, and when I say profound, I am not exaggerating, happening not this past Friday, but the Friday before, that literally knocked me all the way to my socks. And I haven't talked about that per se publicly, but it was something that literally gave me an entire new perspective on things. Something that I would have by any stretch of the imagination said was totally, absolutely impossible, but yet it happened. And that's all I'm going to say about that right now. But Vicky, my wife, was here. She was flabbergasted and astounded. And we'll be talking about this on or about September the 25th on my show that night with a very special guest that I am going to be bringing on. And I'm telling you, man, it was crazy. But tonight, this being the 22nd anniversary of the 9/11/01 attacks, my buddy, my friend, my confidant, Commander Cobra, who had a well-received show on this channel a couple of years back called Task Force Griffin. Commander Cobra is a retired military officer, pilot. He flew missions in the sandbox. Matter of fact, this guy has even made it in a couple of movies, playing men of fortune, I guess we could say, law enforcement officials and what have you. Oh yeah, he's got a little screen credit to his resume along with his military. Today, he is working as a military consultant on a number of things. Some he can talk about, some he can't. But with that being said, my buddy, I call him Charlie Deuce. If you've been in the military, you're familiar with the military phonetic alphabet. Commander Cobra, CC, Charlie Deuce, or just simply Deuce. Deuce, welcome back to Dark Matters Radio. How you doing, buddy?
It's great to be here. Thank you very much, Decker. And Mark, it's great to see you. Jerry, it's great to see you as well.
Gary.
Gary. Yes. For those that don't know, in the green room, the virtual green room, there were some shenanigans, and we found out that Gary, excuse me, is that's what he wanted tonight. So,
and I'm going to share with everybody that the three of us tried to prank Don Ecker, and we found out there's no point in trying to prank Don Ecker because he's not paying any attention to us.
He's not really paying attention to his co-hosts. So
we were sitting there acting like we were talking and not talking and like that, and Don just kept going, didn't give two shits what was going on with us.
But as always, Don, thank you very much. I'm honored to be your guest, and I always love to say hello to the greatest audience on the planet.
Amen, brother. Well, this is the 22nd anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. Now, you and me, we're all Americans, okay? And with the exception of Mark, we've all been in the armed forces. And having been in the armed forces, and I was in during the Vietnam debacle, I'll use that term about Vietnam. It was a debacle. It was a tremendous waste of money, of lives. My own tender skin got pierced pretty badly and all of that. But one thing that I have noticed that is absolutely beyond any doubt the truth, Americans, we as a people have an attention span about the size of a gnat's behind. Now, Deuce, would you disagree with that?
Not at all. 9/11 is a pretty tough day for me. Don, we've talked in the past about my difficulties going through Memorial Day, which has become a rather solemn holiday for me over the last few years, mainly because of what it transpired after 9/11. In fact, I wanted to share one thing when you said we're going to bring this up. I don't know how well it'll come up on the screen. It's not coming up at all. Well, it's a picture of my kids. I was actually on exchange duty, and they made a Lego tower of 9/11. It's a picture I took out of the cockpit of an airplane a few years back before 9/11, when we were able to fly the visual flight rules down the river and go right by the World Trade Towers and circle the Statue of Liberty. It was a pretty common thing for military aircraft to do. And my wife was actually stationed at Staten Island with the Coast Guard and responded to 9/11 at the time. She was on duty there. So there is a very close connection. It obviously completely changed the course of this country's progress, everything that we've gone forward with. And I remember the incredible spirit of not so much patriotism, but really being Americans. I wouldn't say it was patriotic. It was our very best display of being Americans. And to see where we are now and how that's gone away, and to see how people have lacked an understanding of 9/11. I've been to the Arizona a number of times. In fact, when I was on your show with Jerry, I spoke a little bit about the project I worked out there, and I flew over the Arizona twice a day on missions that we were flying there. No one seems to not know what December 7th is, but I see 9/11 slipping away.
I gotta break in really quickly. This just brought a memory to me when I was a young lad, okay, just heading to junior high school. It was in December, and I remember one morning getting up. It was December the 7th. This was 1961. And I went out into the kitchen, and my mother and my father were out there, and they were talking. I, at first, didn't pay any attention. But then I heard my mother say to my father, his name was Don also. She said, "Don, can you believe it's been 20 years since Pearl Harbor?" Now, that time is now how many years ago? 60 years ago. 60 years ago was Pearl Harbor. Today is 22 years since 9/11. And one last thing I want to say, Commander Cobra, before I get back to you. The morning of September 11th, 2001, I had a bad, restless night that night before, and had gotten up real early in the wee hours of the morning. Generally, I am up and about 05:30 hours every day. And on this particular night, I was having a rotten night. I don't remember why, but I went back to bed, and I fell back asleep finally. And at 7:30, normally I've been up 2 hours or more, the phone starts ringing. Now, remember, it's September 11th. I kind of groggily got awake. I reached for the phone beside the bed, and I answered it. And it was my buddy, Dwight Schultz, the actor. And he was doing his best howling mad Murdoch, because if you know anything about Schultz, you'll know he was on the 1980s hit series, The A-Team, played the crazy helicopter pilot. He was bouncing off the wall. He said, my God, did you see it? Did you see it? And I had no idea what he was talking about. He said, get out to the living room, turn on your TV, we've been attacked. Now, when he said that, I had no idea. What, did the Russians nuke us? Or, what the hell are you going on about? So I go out and I turn it on, and there it was. And I got to tell you, man, my entire worldview changed on a dime that morning. Deuce?
Same. I was in Croatia. I was on exchange duty. When I came into where we were staying, the TV was on, wasn't really paying attention, saw the smoke, and immediately everything changed. I have no other way to describe it. It was obvious that it wasn't an accident. I think back, one of my former squadron mates that I did not know very well, he came in the squadron as I was leaving. He was co-pilot on the plane that hit the first tower. I have, on this day, 8 years ago, Alan Perlin, who was one of the best in the aerial stunt coordination for movies. He was a tremendous, he had a tremendous amount of work that he did in providing security and defense and related kind of activities besides what he did in the movies. He passed away on this day, and this day had a huge effect on him. We met, when you were alluding to earlier, on the set of Bad Boys 2, because he was the aerial stunt coordinator. That's where I met him, and then I spent and did some work with him over the years after that. it's just a tremendous turning point that amazes me that we don't have the kind of, it just doesn't, I don't think it's just because I'm getting old and I'm looking at this, it seems to have lost the perspective that it should be, people should be thinking and questioning about why it happened, what we did afterwards. And it seems to be bypassing on that. And I've heard and probably looked at every theory about it. Was it an inside job? There's a million questions that haven't been answered on that. But I will say something that we're going to drive to on the show tonight. Anything is possible at this point. Where years ago I would have said there's no possible way that there was anything going on. It was just administrative stovepiping and foolishness that went on that led to us missing the signals and putting it together. Anything is possible. And I'll maybe tie that in a little bit later on. But to those that lost family and friends, to those people that are still struggling with that loss, my heart is still in support of you. And to the countless people that everyone here knows, there's no one here that does not know, and I'm sure most of the audience knows, and has some connection to some loss in the wars that have gone on after it.
I want to check my other two co-hosts, Jagary and Mark. Jagary, I like that, Jagary. That there's it kind of rolls.
I'll tell Clavin you liked it.
He doesn't want to do it now that he knows you like it. He doesn't want to do it.
Yeah, I do. I like it, Jagary. What were you doing when you found out about?
I had just gotten up for work. I had Zoe, my daughter, getting ready for daycare, and I popped on the Today Show, and I just saw right when I turned it on, it had just happened, and they were replaying it, and I looked at that, and I immediately, first thing that goes to my mind, first of all, that's not a flight path. How the hell did an airliner go down central New York like that? That's not an accident. But I wasn't thinking terrorist attack. I was thinking, an intentional crashing or downing of a plane. And while watching it, and I know anybody that was watching live TV that morning remembers the second plane hitting. And the minute the second plane hit, we knew exactly what was going on. My military training kicked in, and I'm like, we're under attack. This is intentional. This wasn't an accident or a horrible incident. This was an attack by a foreign national against us. And not just us. Those were international towers. Anybody in those towers that was killed, Japanese, I think the only people that weren't in, and this led to their own conspiracy, that the Israeli company wasn't there. They just happened to not be there that day. But pretty much companies from all over the world were there and died on those floors. And it just was devastating and horrifying. And I don't know about anybody else, but I was glued to the TV all day. I remember we all brought our TVs into the office and hooked them up just so we can watch what was happening in real time. And of course, that's the thing. This wasn't like the old days. We could actually keep up to date real time because there are 24/7 news channels.
Yeah, Desert Shield, Desert Storm, I think probably led the way for that on CNN.
It did with CNN.
Yeah,
and Wolf Blitzer and what's his name, who were the heroes of the war because they were on all the time.
Mark, how about you, buddy?
Well, unlike the slacker Jerry Gary, I was already working.
Whatever.
I was in a pump pit in front of a sizzler, and we were changing out some valves, and people started. You really weren't sure, right? Because we're out there working, and we're hearing about something happened in New York, so we went into the restaurant, and we saw it on the TV in there, and then you're kind of, so should I go back to work? Because I'm a city worker, so you always ask that question, right? Should I go back to work or should I stay in here and watch the TV? And we had to be at work all day. So all of us didn't really know what was going on until the drive home, the radio in your truck, and then when we got home.
Yeah.
When I'm probably the youngest one here or close to it. It seems to me why we're forgetting is more of a societal thing. Back with the issue in Hawaii, as I'll call it, we were a much more patriotic country. And now, because of the training that goes down to grade schools now, but especially in the colleges and the high schools, to hate America, distrust America, distrust everything about it. We don't have the answers about the Saudis. We don't have all of these unanswered questions, and yet we have a bunch of people who hate the country. So is it any wonder that they're going to want to marginalize this and say, just forget about it. This country sucks, and we deserve it. That's what I say.
We're always we deserve what we get. But let's go back to the first Gulf War. There was more of a societal war footing than there was for the second Gulf War. George W. Bush went out there on TV and said, everybody go on about your life. Don't worry about it. Go shopping. He's telling us not to worry about it. We got this. We'll get them. And that bugged the shit out of me. You know, there was no attempt to get a societal war footing when we went into Afghanistan and later Iraq. And it was completely different with the first Gulf War. I remember everybody like, you be safe, and everybody gave a shit. Nobody gave a shit after 9/11 for some weird reason, because George Bush went on TV and said, don't worry about it. Am I wrong? Because he did do that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He absolutely did.
I could be completely wrong about this, and you guys can tell me, but it seems as though America as a whole is far more behind the current engagement that we're having with our money than we've ever been with the 9/11, right? It just seems to me on the news and the talking heads, we aren't going to leave. We're going to pump in billions more, trillions more of the money and such to help them out. They seem much more involved and much more rah-rah about that than they ever have about 9/11.
Well, because we're not on YouTube, I really wouldn't worry about it, because we can say Ukraine and state that they're pumping billions of dollars into this thing. We got people homeless in this country, and they're pumping billions into this war. We don't belong yet. And on top of that, they're pussyfooting around with a country that's befriending every single enemy of this country while doing it. And this is, I don't know, this is an experiment in disaster for this country, financially and, nationally, internationally. As war.
It seems like it's a real-time analogy of why the 9/11 is being pushed off to the side, and this is going to come up to the top, and half the country is, yeah, and the other half of the country is, what the hell? What are we doing?
I don't think Biden even went there today, did he?
No, he's in Alaska.
He went to Alaska. Well, at least he thinks he's in Alaska. Or maybe, I don't know.
Well, to circle back just a little bit, I think, Mark, I think you really are onto a point that we have eroded a lot of it. But I always like to throw the perspective. We still don't know what happened on the Lincoln assassination. We just had a recent ability.
Or JFK.
Oh, well, that's what I was going to jump to. And we just had another, 50 or 60 years at it to keep files sealed on JFK. And just to correct you, Don, I don't like to ever correct Decker, especially when it's on his show. It was 82 years ago for not 62, because I'm 62. And when you said Pearl Harbor was 62 years ago.
No.
It's 82 years.
No. You
said
I was talking about when my parents were
right,
talking,
and you said that was 20 years ago.
No, 60 years ago. My mother had told my father, "Can you believe Pearl Harbor was 20 years ago?"
Oh, I got you. Okay,
and that was 60 years ago from today.
Now
Get
I'm
your shit together, deuce.
sorry about that, Sergeant. Won't happen again.
2 plus 2 is 4. It's not 5.
Well, it depends. It depends.
It does depend.
It depends. But we are we're in a very tough time because you can't speak about your various feelings on any of this, and not everything has been politicized, and that's going to weigh heavily in my discussion with you gentlemen tonight on the subjects that Don has lined up. Everything is politicized. Everything is weaponized. And if you are not in line, no one else wants to hear your point of view. I haven't gotten that bad. I do feel myself getting recalcitrated to a point that when I hear somebody starting to talk about it and trying to explain why they think something's in good shape, and I'm looking at it and it looks like a steaming pile of you-know-what, how they can come to that conclusion. But ultimately, I will fall back on a line attributed to Mark Twain, Sam Clements. Red ants and black ants in the jar, and everything is going fine. Somebody picks the jar up, shakes the jar, and the ants are now ripping each other apart, killing each other. Who shook the jar? And that's the thing I think every part of this has. Who is shaking the jar on us to do this? I have very strong feelings that the people of Ukraine deserve to have freedom and security. Absolutely. The way we're going about it right now, I could not be more violently against in any possible way on how this is being conducted. It doesn't make even the tiniest bit of sense to me when I look at any of it. We were actually buying oil from Russia at one point during this so-called embargoed war. We have depleted our strategic reserves to some of the lowest levels they've ever been. And we are spending money that we don't have, and we have a military that is in dire need of hardware and software and ammunition, and everything that's loose that isn't nailed down has been sent over there. And when you ask, can we have an accounting of this? Can we see where this is going? You're told no. Very, very difficult to swallow. Very, very difficult to understand. Very difficult.
Now, my major problem stems from the get-go. Where the hell are the Brits, the French, the Germans, okay, the Italians, the Spanish, the Portuguese, okay? That's their subcontinent. That's theirs. Do we all remember when Putin was rattling the nuclear saber? Okay? If something happened over there, it's going to affect all of Europe before it affects us. And they are doing nothing. That's one thing that I got to say. And boy, this is going to cause some hate and discontent. Tough shit. Okay? Trump, when he was in office, went over there and made them start ponying up to their NATO duties, their funds. Okay? He said, hey, boys, it's about time you all start shelling out. And guess what? They started shelling out.
Well, a few of them did, but at the very least, he brought it up. When's the last time a president even talked about that? I can't remember till him.
And the other thing that he did that I loved, as a matter of fact, everybody in America loved it at the time. For all intents and purposes, Trump made us energy independent. The second that the current administration took office, they shut down the Keystone Pipeline, okay? And before you know it, we were going to Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, all these other places, hat in hand, begging them to sell us oil, okay? Now, to me, that never made a lick of sense, and that's when the loyal opposition, the Republicans sitting on their ass in Congress, excuse me, I don't usually get political, but this pisses me off. They should have filed articles of impeachment against him then.
Yeah, they have a tendency of sitting on their hands, not doing the things they're supposed to do. So,
it's hard to tell a difference between political parties it's we're in again. 9/11 was the point where we made the turn on the path that we are on now.
The political path. That's right.
And we buy into things, and we have seen changes in how we adhere to the Constitution. As far as I'm concerned, one of the most important documents ever written by people on the planet. And if we stayed on track with the Constitution and constitutional process, we would be not in the shape that we are right now.
Well, we just saw the governor of New Mexico attempt to nullify the First and Second Amendments from the United States
Did I not
Constitution.
read this morning that they're moving towards impeaching her?
Yeah, but they impeached Bill Clinton, and
Yeah, well, that's the problem. Is people think impeachment means get him out of office,
It
and it doesn't. You can't necessarily get them out of office by impeaching them. Impeachment really doesn't.
Well, the impeachment process has a vote that goes with it, and they have, depending on the body, one body does the investigation, the other body does the trying, and then they vote, and then if that vote carries, that person is impeached for removal.
Right, because this is what was going on with Nixon, and Barry Goldwater had that meeting with him and told him, if you do not resign, you will bring down the Republican Party. You're going to do damage that's just irreparable. And so that's why he resigned, because there was that threat that there would not just be the impeachment, but he would be removed from office. And that was something he said this country couldn't take. So Nixon listened to Barry Goldwater and resigned. But did it really save the Republican Party? Because I don't think the Republican Party has pulled its head out of its ass since.
Well, it's hard to tell, because Jerry Ford, his then vice president, immediately moved into the Oval Office. What's the first thing that President Ford did?
Pardoned Nixon.
Nixon.
Yep.
And that created a firestorm damn near as large as what the Watergate thing did. I was a young patrol officer then when all that happened back on the East Coast in Pennsylvania. And I'll never forget the day that Nixon left office, went down to the what was it, Air Force? Well, I don't think, no, after he resigned, it wouldn't be Air Force One, whatever airplane he was getting on. And it was
a helicopter. It was what is that? Air Force Two?
The helicopters are Marine One and Marine
Marine
2.
1 and Marine 2. So I think he was getting on Marine 2.
Okay. Well, at any rate, I was just getting ready to go on duty, and I was leaving my apartment, and I was heading down to the station, and I looked at that, and I can remember thinking, my God, this is a date that I'll never forget, that will reside throughout all of history. And and nobody knew where we were heading then. Nobody knew. And we can see where we went when President Carter won the election and took over. Then, yeah, things started to really slip. If you were around then and paying attention, you saw it.
Another backdrop, and I think, Mark, I'd like to get your take on this, because I think you being a little bit younger might have the appreciation. The whole backdrop of how we have done things has changed. I liked it when the press, when I was in college, which it was referred to as the watchdog of democracy, hated everybody. Now, obviously, they hated some people more than others. I don't think that Nixon would ever have won any kind of popularity with most of the media back in the day. I think they did a pretty good job of not investigating too deeply how we got into Vietnam and what happened in the Gulf of Tonkin and the outright falsifications of what occurred there, because we were looking for an excuse for something to happen there. But they did go after the Pentagon Papers. They did do things like that. But we have changed. Our media has changed. The fact that there was a delay in the cycle of how news came out just look at the difference between what happened on 9/11 and fairly close to live television and that burgeoning 24-hour coverage, wall-to-wall information. But the internet hadn't really kicked in at that point like it is now. You're looking at now a complete change on that backdrop of how information, again, which I think links very closely, Don, to the things that you want to talk about in the rest of the show. Our media immersion and how we're connected. I don't think any one of us stands waiting for fast food or somebody to come out of a store that you don't reach for your phone and immediately do something with it. You're looking either to get some kind of connection to news or to look at online information or have a conversation with somebody without talking to them by typing to them. We've completely changed how that dynamic works. And with it, I think there's just a lack of maturity to be able to question anything that comes across and say, wait a minute. One of my greatest things when I talk with family members is they'll tell me they heard something. And I said, well, did you look anyplace else? Well, no, this is the site I always go to. You have the ability to cross-check anything. And if it's all lies, at least you can get other variances of the lie that you can compare the two of them and come up with some kind of conclusion of what might be accurate and what you're being told and what you're concluding.
Well, my wife is a journalism graduate. She was a working journalist after she got her degree. And it was actually her journalism and her curiosity that originally caused her and a business associate then, another young lady by the name of Sherry Stark, to begin the publication that I ended up being the director of research for, UFO Magazine. Now, during the beginnings of not this administration, but the last administration, as a journalist by profession, she would watch news reports of the initial attempts to basically impeach the last president, Donald Trump, from the get-go. As a journalist, she listened to the reports that were being broadcast. And I got to tell you, she was climbing the walls. She could not believe what she was hearing. And many of the people on the other side of the aisle that were going after the then sitting president, people like, Eric Swalwell and my congressman here in this district in California. Look, it was just amazing. It was so transparent that all of media seemed to be subverted. Would you all agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely.
How does that happen? How does it happen?
Look, the example that made the biggest impression on me is when Jesse Smollett comes out and he does that thing, and it goes on and on and on, and it gets worse and worse and worse for him, where it was proven beyond the shadow of a doubt that it was a hoax and a fake. What did the mainstream do? They just moved on. There was no corrections from the mainstream. You're not going to find MSNBC or any of those people who would go on the air and say, oops, none of them said anything. They just pushed it and pushed it and pushed it until it blew up. And then it's like, well, it never happened.
Well, sadly, what happened, Mark, I think the other part that happens, sadly, is when you catch someone doing something wrong, lying, whatever, because of, and fill in any of the magic catchwords,
Race.
They were justified to do it because you made them feel that way. That's what's changed. And I don't think it was 9/11 definitely was an accelerator to this. Vietnam, our changeover in the 50s and 60s. I think there's a lot of sociological things that you can point to that changed. But we just went away from being what our culture was at that time. We don't maintain.
Commander, I have a question for you on that.
Go ahead.
Do you think that after Kennedy's assassination, it seemed collectively we became more of a cynical country?
I think that was that's probably the first time that you have a televised event of that magnitude, of that impact to the American public.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it wasn't, for many people, it was obviously near instantaneous, but it was televised. There was people that saw that. There were television cameras there, and immediately, now it's nothing compared to what happens now. I mean, now, well, some would say that it's pre-coordinated, and Don, to your lovely bride, her profession has changed. There are no longer journalism as a profession. Anybody who has a phone and something to say can be a journalist, can put information up. And if it's crazy enough and it gets people to look at it, there's advertisers ready to move in immediately and make that happen. So, yes, I think the Kennedy part of it is a big departure. I think that the rumors that swirled around then that are now coming up in this next election season with a Kennedy that is trying to run in this election and things that are going on there, no doubt. No doubt. What's happening, though, is we're losing faith in our institutions. Our culture has changed. In my world, it's eroded. It hasn't changed as much as it's eroded to a much more base kind of situation.
And
well, I got to tell you, I've got no, and it literally, it pains me to say this. I have no faith in this institution at all. None. Okay. It's gotten to the point, and it's been years coming. Okay. Years coming. For example, back during the last part of President Obama's tenure in his second term, when they arbitrarily pulled out of Iraq and basically gave it over to ISIS. What just happened a couple of years ago in Afghanistan, Biden just arbitrarily pulled out, left billions in military equipment there, hundreds, if not thousands of people behind. And still to this day, there are people that are trapped over there. Nobody talks about it. Nobody thinks about it. Nobody knows about it. And Commander Cobra, what the hell is the mantra of every United States military organization in this country? What is it? What don't we do? Leave nobody behind. Exactly.
Gary.
Well, I want to point out that we brought up something about the media, and one thing that I personally think is lacking today is accountability for information given, and you gave good examples of it previously. Now I'm going to point one out that happened before those in the 1990s with Richard Jewell. We saw what the media did to him.
Yep.
They destroyed that man's life.
Yeah.
And made him out to be the bomber. And when it was shown that he was actually trying to save people and was not the bomber, they didn't go out of their way. They went out of their way to make that the story. And then when it wasn't the story, they just went, all right, well, sorry about that. Moving on. And the accountability of the media isn't there. They're not accountable to the news that they give. And we know that with the 24-hour news cycle, so began the first person to get it wins. Whether the information is correct or not doesn't matter. Get it first. Don't worry about getting it right. And that is the standard.
The movie Nightcrawler is probably one of the greatest explorations of that phenomenon.
Yeah.
And
No doubt. And
when
it
you brought
is
up
a
Rich
solid,
Jewell,
horrifying film.
I think
by
of
the way.
Clint Eastwood's work that he did in the
Oh
movie
yeah,
that he did
great
about
movie.
a
Great movie.
tremendous movie.
Oh, the movie he made about Jewel? Yes.
Absolutely. And
powerful film.
And heartbreaking what happened to him, and the price that he paid and his family paid.
It eventually killed him.
It did. And I think another interesting one. I have a lot of affection for the man, Michael Bay, what he did with 13 Hours. Now, we don't even talk about Benghazi anymore because it's been surpassed by so many other layers of stuff that's going on. And that's why you had what happened in my mind. That's why you had what happened in Afghanistan happen. Every time something goes wrong and we have this, it's only a short time before something else occurs to surpass that in its scope. There is not a balanced approach at going back to report went on. No one's really investigating that anymore. Media has become much too much propaganda for me. And whoever's behind all of this, and that's a kind of a euphemism that I'm using, they know that if you continue to keep injecting these kinds of subjects, these kinds of events, these kinds of findings, people are left off balance. And there's less griping about the fact that gas is still a couple bucks over what it was 3 years ago. That the whole thing that we went through in the pandemic was based on some very incorrect data and factual kind of information that was presented us as facts that wasn't. It was bad conclusions that people made. We are in dark times. Many of my friends believe this is tribulation time.
Yep.
I can see where they see that.
It could be. All I know is this. It's the circle of friends, like the three that I am with here tonight. The vast majority of the audience that listens to this show, the folks that I call the greatest audience on the planet that are still with KGRA, the circle of friends that are close to me where I live, that's the only way we're going to be able to maintain and come back. Now, what we come back to, because the course that we're on now, I think is going to have a very bad crash, and we haven't hit bottom yet. And what you were talking about, Don, that we're really going to go for the balance of the show on there, to me seems to be just another tool in the bag that's being waved around to throw people off, to keep people not staying cognizant to the things that are happening to them around them. I don't like illegal aliens entering the country. My heart breaks when these people are here and they are trying to survive. I understand why they're coming here. I would want to come here if I didn't live here, even in the condition that things are now. My heart breaks for the people in Ukraine because, as usual, it is always the poor that pay the price for this nonsense, and they pay with their lives. And they have very little control, very little say of what they're doing to try to correct that. And we're not, in my humble opinion, really pressing as we did as Americans before to stabilize the situation, get it stopped, sue for peace, get this thing under control. And we are a step away from two nuclear powers getting into it. I remember when a lot of people that are avant-garde on the scene right now used to think that Putin was a pretty cool guy, and the former president that preceded President Biden wasn't. And now now he's an evil doer. And if you bring up what they said in the past, well, that was then, this is now. Putin has always been a dirtbag from the start. I remember one of our presidents said he looked into his eyes and saw his soul. What the hell did you see, Mr. President?
Nothing.
What we all got to remember, okay, and my wife sometimes gets so upset at me.
Really?
Because
You?
Mark
way.
will. Oh yeah,
You're
Mark
just a
will.
teddy bear.
Mark will verify this. I forget very little. Okay, and ask Mark. Sometimes we'll be talking on the phone and he'll drop a quarter in me. That's our euphemism for me taking off on a rant. He'll drop a quarter in me.
So you
and
triggered
45
him is
minutes
what it
later,
is, right, Mark?
but no,
Mark, is that
really,
50 cents now with inflation?
No. In fact, a dime, if I'm at the doctor's office, will take up the entire time that I'm in the waiting room. Just a dime. He'll
A dime of what?
on and
Because I know you West Coast guys, dime means something different. What are you talking about?
he'll yammer on and on about this stuff that it's like, I don't know what the hell he's talking about, but I'm just going to let him go.
Oh shit. Well, Jagari will tell you. I've done quite a few of his shows, and they'll drop a quarter in me. And one day I gave them basically the whole history of UFOs in the latter 1980s. I mean, just ask them.
Absolutely.
It happened.
So as far as the media and the culture war that we're in now, which where I live, I'm sort of involved in that with the schools and things. Like it or not, in 2015, when Trump came down the golden escalator, that's when it ramped up. As soon as that guy said, I'm actually going to run this time, the rails went off.
And apparently he didn't run under the right party, the correct party. So that was the other thing.
He always said that, though, Commander. He said it back in '86 when Oprah asked him.
Yep.
If you ever ran for president, he says, I would run as a Republican.
Absolutely.
He said it.
Yeah, he plays.
But Mark, you're absolutely right. His presence was, and to me, more than anything else, it's because he's an outsider. He was not owed anything. He owed nothing to anybody else. And you just can't have that kind of a person.
He's successful. He's got a hot wife. He owns all this stuff. And people look at him. The rappers would see him and go, oh, yeah. But then the regular people on the left would look at him and say, oh, well, he must have stole all that. He's got to be a thief. He's got to be a thief.
That was probably the accelerant that tipped the can over.
Absolutely. I'm sure.
I love it when people say he didn't build anything. And it's like, are you kidding me? He almost single-handedly saved New York.
I'm sure that everybody here lost friends and know of lost friends. When it comes to Afghanistan, I was trolling on Facebook, and these are people I went to high school with, and the guy responds to something about the Afghanistan when we left, and he said, well, Trump kind of backed up Biden against the wall when he put a date on when they had to leave. And you look at that and go, wait a minute.
No,
wait a minute. So all of these executive orders that you pulled all these orders, and yet you were held against the wall because you said, well, we're going to leave on this date. Give me a freaking break. I mean, Trump derangement.
One comment I would like to make. Without an orderly withdrawal, what could we have done for Ukraine with all the stuff that we left in Afghanistan? And that upsets a lot of folks when I bring that out. When I bring that kind of an item up, they're very close in theater. And ultimately, some of that material ended up with the Iranians. The Iranians are selling it and sending it up. They're aiding the Russians in their attacks on Ukraine. What a wonderful situation we have done. And you're absolutely correct, Mark. If you can knock off with the stroke of a pen the previous couple hundred executive orders, but this one you can't, then you go to Congress and say, this isn't how we're going to do this, and this is how we're going to close this down.
Well, people don't understand, though, Commander, that how executive orders work. And it's like, as soon as you are no longer president, those executive orders can be written off immediately.
Well, it's just a Band-Aid.
Yeah, it's peeled off with the next presidency.
Well, often the next administration coming in will continue them, especially if they're successful, if they're doing things what people want.
What was it? There's still one executive order that the U.S. will not participate.
Tariffs are still in.
The China tariffs.
We won't assassinate another leader.
That actually became, I believe that's law.
Yeah. Did it become law?
Yeah, I don't think that's an executive order.
Because it was originally an executive order.
It started out that way.
Yep. And it's one that we should not participate in. I don't think even covertly. it's like we need to stay as far away from that as possible because.
Okay, guys, I just was notified by our illustrious producer,
Chanel,
lovely Miss Chanel, that we are just about ready to go to a break. So with a few seconds left before we go to break, let me just say that when we come back, yes, we're going to take an in-depth look at the UFO disclosure front. What in the hell is happening? We'll be back. Stick around.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
Are we alone in the universe? The most important question facing humanity is on the verge of being settled once and for all. The Mutual UFO Network has been at the forefront of this journey for nearly 50 years. Our members worldwide are dedicated to the research, documentation, and awareness that will shape the future of humanity. Won't you join us?
Are you looking to go on a faraway journey that is magical and mysterious, reaping on mystical legends? If so, then Mysterious Adventure Tours is perfect for you. Imagine a voyage to explore ancient mysteries of Ireland, haunted majesties of Scotland, or their chilling Birth of the Vampires in Romania. These small, esoteric getaways are limited and do fill up fast. So, go to MysteriousAdventureTours.com and book your trip soon.
You're listening to the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. We provide unparalleled coverage of trending news in the world of ufology, cryptozoology, and paranormal phenomenon. Whether you're watching our video live stream or listening to one of our audio programs, you are getting the best from world-renowned researchers and hosts, guiding you through topics the mainstream won't touch. Miss one of your favorite programs? No problem. Head over to the members area at kgradb.com for access to our massive library of award-winning content. Make contact, stay connected, only at kgradb.com.
Okay, we are back, and now we're going to take a look at the UFO topic, or today, as some prefer to call it, the UAP. I've been watching this phenomenon personally since the 1960s. I had a hell of a sighting of God only knows what it was in 1966 in December, when I was out deer hunting with three of my buddies. After I came back from Vietnam, one day I was reading Fate magazine, and I saw an ad for a new book that was coming out by a very well-known author at the time by the name of John Keel. His book was called The Mothman Prophecies, and this took place actually right in my part of the country, because just about 2 hours or a little more below my hometown was West Virginia. And there were some weird things happening there. And occasionally you'd hear other reports from that part of the country. Well, later, when I did an extensive historical retrospective on it, I discovered that in that time period of the 1960s, and I'm talking primarily 65 through 67 or so, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, New Jersey, New York were literally being invaded in the skies by these things. I got to tell you, I was shocked because the media, for the most part, never touched the subject. Now, in that period of time, I watched this. I've watched UFOs rise in media interest and popularity and then sink. In the 80s, when I was a criminal investigator, 81, 82, I investigated what turned out to be 2 cattle mutilations. And in retrospect, how my department, my organization treated that was very telling. They wanted literally nothing to do with it. The case was never solved. And like the large majority of these cases are never solved. There's never been a successful arrest or prosecution of anybody conducting a cattle mutilation. And cattle are not the only animals that have suffered this atrocity. And that's the word I use, this atrocity. There have been horses, there have been sheep, there have been all kinds of animals, but cattle get the most recognition. Now, as time went along, a couple of big cases broke in the 80s. 1986, Japan Airlines, an airliner flying from France, carrying a big load, incidentally, of my favorite French red wine, Beaujolais, encountered a tremendously sized UFO over the skies of Alaska. Well, it wasn't only the airliner crew and the captain that saw this thing. It was picked up on radar. The FAA became involved. And then purportedly, according to one FAA guy, I believe he had retired by then, came in and said that a couple of government types, read that, CIA probably, came in and squashed the report. That later came out. But it was President Reagan that displayed an inordinate amount of interest in this case. And then later, it came out about the Bentwaters incident. CNN ran a special series of reports about the incursion of an American air base in the United Kingdom that housed tactical nuclear weapons, and A-10 Warthogs, because nobody knew at the time if the Russians were going to jump. They had already jumped into Afghanistan, That was a whole new thing. Poland was in chaos. It was still a Soviet satellite country. They were afraid of a Hungarian-type invasion of Poland by Russian tanks, just like they did in Hungary in 56. And there were many other things, the Gulf Breeze case. Well, just about that time, I became involved. And the one thing that many in the UFO field were screaming for was disclosure. And I got to tell you, in my 20 years at UFO Magazine, I broke personally some very big cases. I dealt, and my wife dealt with the Pentagon. We dealt with NASA. All right. We did a very special issue on President Reagan's Star Wars weapons initiative. I personally think I saw the result of that. in one case that I broke in 1992 called STS-48.
I saw the result of that.
I'm getting feedback. Did you guys hear that?
Yep.
I don't know what the hell that's from. So,
Pentagon trying to throw you off, Don.
No, it's possible. No, they had me under surveillance, pal. I'm telling you, they did. So, at any rate, this was a case.
No joke. To invoke a common phrase these days, no joke, and I am not surprised.
No joke.
I squared off with a NASA contract scientist by the name of Jim Oberg, dealing with this case where I think I saw the Star Wars initiative being utilized on STS-48. And Larry King at that time on CNN had a worldwide program. It went literally all around the globe. And he would always take phone calls. Well, on that night, he took 2 phone calls. And lo and behold, they were both from NASA contract employees. Okay. Needless to say, I have no doubt the fix was in. And not surprisingly, 2 days later, I received a call from a contact in Washington, D.C. that told me that the feed that live NASA video was streamed down on had now been encrypted after my appearance on Larry King Live, and that anything from space seen after that was either vetted for first or was in time delay. Now, my opinion then was I will die and everybody else in the field will die and disclosure will never happen. But then something quite amazing, I thought, happened in December of 2017. Harry Reid, the former senior Democratic senator from Nevada, gave a press briefing, a news release, that he and 2 other senators had acquired roughly $22 million, which in the Pentagon budget is nothing, but they financed a special project within the Pentagon to basically examine and investigate aerial anomalies. Now, suddenly, UFOs, after being fallow for roughly 10, 15 years, hit the headlines again. And this summer, on July 26th, which happens to be my birthday, Congress held hearings about UFOs. And suddenly, the band was playing, the wagons were going down the street, the parade was happening. And I looked at all this and I said, nah, this is not going to happen. And in April, I started a paper, which I'm working on now. I kind of let it lay for a month or 2. I started a paper on why I believe that disclosure is a pipe dream. Now, Commander Cobra, you've been around some of those corridors of power. You held security clearances, and as far as I know, you still do. What is your uptake on this disclosure business?
I'm highly suspect on. I believed in UFOs until the government told me they were real. It's a popular meme out there, and I'm starting to feel that way. I find it just a little bit too neat, a little bit too fits just a little bit too well to the narrative that we were talking about in the first hour. That why now? Why now are we having this information? Why are we having this kind of discussion? And if you look at the way it's being presented, the tabloid almost kind of approach to it, the sensationalism, the low on facts, lots of stuff going on. High ridicule factor for some of the people that are there. And when you look at the backdrop of all the other things that are being covered at the same time. I question the motives behind it. For all the things that we talked about in the last hour, for all the things that we've talked about for years that we've known each other of where we're at, I find the timing, I find the people that seem to be most interested in this part of disclosure. I fall back on one thing I told you very early on. I don't need anyone to confirm what I believe and what I have concluded is true, starting with the existence of God or some supreme being, down to extraterrestrials living on other worlds.
Bigfoot.
And I think that there is no reason to believe that the control of information and the control of access to information is a handy tool for keeping people in the dark, in control, under control. That's where I fall back on this. Now, I am intrigued with some of the testimony that I hear. And as in every case, I fall back to an event very early on in my career. We had a defector when I was stationed in Europe. This defector came in. He was brought up on stage, bright lights. The guy, this was probably the 20th or 30th time he had gone around to the bases to do his talking. And he presented information. There was an interpreter there for the parts where he couldn't speak well. And he basically told what he did when he was on the other side of the Iron Curtain. And he was a signals guy. He listened into radio calls. He threw out names and call signs. He threw out some provocative things on there. And then he also, I think, embellished the story. And I think he got more comfortable every time he was doing what he was doing. And a lot of it was somewhat sensational, the things that he was passing out at that date and time. Now, it served a purpose. It was raw meat for us in the days when we were figuring that we were coming to the apex of something was going to happen with the then Soviet Union. And this was just one of the many things that I never played football. It's obvious if you look at me that I'm not that kind of a guy. I'm much more of the bull rider type. You know me, that's my sport. But this was some of the training films. This was getting ready for the opposition. But it has a similar ring to it when you see how things are packaged. And you can't even get the unpolished, unvarnished version of this testimony. Now, it's been great. KGRA has had a number of people that were actually there, that listened to the testimony, that were there as observers early on. And I think that that's phenomenal to get that kind of near firsthand accounting of it. But I am suspect. I am suspect why this now is coming out the way it is, and it's still not disclosing. I think if we do get disclosure, because I was much like yourself, there was two things I didn't think we have disclosure, and I never thought the Red Sox were going to win the World Series in my lifetime. So one has come true. I guess the other one has a possibility of coming true. But if it does, it's only going to come out because it is going to be used as a way to distract people from some other thing that's going on. Or if you take my more sinister views, there is some kind of an agreement, there is some kind of situation that powers to be have made arrangements with non-Earth-based life forms for what's going to happen in the future.
We call those biologicals now.
Biological.
Yeah. I gotta insert something here. When I broke the STS-48 story, originally I knew a producer on a strip television show at that time. You probably all will remember it, hard copy. Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's where I first took the video, which had been live streamed from a NASA feed, down to show them. And they ended up running a story on it. Right after that, I knew one of King's producers a guy that his name was Tom Farmer. I called Farmer up and I told him about this. And he said, do me a favor if you can. He said, run it down to CNN in LA and they'll beam me this video back and I'll take a look at it and then I'll let you know what happens. Well, I did. And they got very excited because in this video, and probably most of the audience at one time or another have seen this, the space shuttle is flying above Australia and New Zealand. Now, the fact that it was flying over Australia and New Zealand is interesting to me personally, because when I was in the military in Vietnam and Okinawa, I was involved in intelligence operations. And I was aware that there is a very top secret site in Australia that's kind of a joint base. It's American, there are Australians there that do a lot of hinky stuff, okay? But while they're overflying Australia, this UFO, this unidentified object, this bogey, rises above the limb of the earth. And there were some interesting backdrop out there. There were some things that might have been satellites or something. I'm not sure. But the one I remember had like an arm on it, and it would be basically doing this with the arm when this UFO was coming up. And suddenly there's a brilliant flash of light off to the side that streams through the shuttle window. This brilliant flash of light. Then there's this streak of something going hell-bent for election right at that UFO. And suddenly this UFO took a violent maneuver, a right angle turn, about 145-degree turn, and shot out into space. This thing streaked past it, and then the UFO slowly came back around. Now, that blew me away. Wasn't only me, because later, as I was to find out, there were other people paying close attention to this, and I'll mention that in a moment. But CNN says, Larry King wants to do a show on this. Okay, Don, who do you recommend to come in? Because we got to have a skeptic. Now, why the hell they had to have a skeptic, I don't know. But I said, okay. Well, the premier skeptic at that time was Philip Klass. Now, Klass was a senior editor at Aviation Week and Space magazine, okay? And they contacted Klass. He wanted nothing to do with it. So they got back to me and said, well, Phil doesn't want to come on and do that. Do you know anybody else? Well, I did. I did know another guy, Dr. Jim Oberg, okay, who was a contract scientist. Now, a lot of people don't know that Oberg had been an Air Force nuclear officer. So this meant that he had a top security clearance, okay? I don't know if it was still active at this time, but he was working at NASA. I'm sure there was a version of it that was. And him being a former and probably a reserve officer at the time, okay, he said, sure, I'll come on and I'll talk about that. I've been at NASA Control down in Houston. Hell, I've watched hundreds and hundreds of hours of these videos. So we go in. Now, I had a question for Jim right off the bat. I said, Jim, tell me, I know you have a security clearance. Is there anything about this that you can't talk about? Well, buddy boy, that triggered Mr. Oberg. Triggered him in a big way. And he started screaming, okay, at the very beginning of the show, well, at least I didn't come on here to sell magazines. Okay. Oh. So, here we went. Now, this video, they tried to say that what you were actually seeing was frozen urine that had been released from a wastewater dump of the shuttle. Now, the only problem with that was I had the entire video. The wastewater dump didn't happen until 3 or 4 minutes after all of this. So I explained that, and I said, look, I also have a video I brought along which shows the shuttle bay doors opening on the shuttle and debris in there that comes floating up. Okay, remember, we're in a zero-G environment, right? And this stuff just kind of floated up and just kind of went this way and that way. This thing was demonstrating a propulsion system of some kind. So we went on and on. Well, the bottom line was, near the end of the program, King threw the lines open. And this contract NASA guy called in from Alabama, and he said, look, I'm telling you that's ice crystals, blah, blah, blah. Well, the second call that they took, oh boy, he shouldn't have called in. That was a guy by the name of Vincent DiPietro. DiPietro, whom I knew, worked at Goddard. Now, what was the deal with DiPietro? And I said there were other people that had seen this, and I'll tell you about it. Right after this mission happened, Dr. Bruce Maccabee, a naval optical physicist, who had a long history of not only working in government, but examining UFO cases. Now, he was the only guy I ever knew that had a UFO interest that worked for the government that wasn't constantly censored or shut down. Now, having been in intelligence material myself, I knew what that meant. Somebody gave this guy the okay to do what the hell he was doing. And DiPietro and him, of course, knew each other from there. They were all back in the DC area. They all talked to each other about various things. And then it came out that not only was Maccabee there and interested, but every week Maccabee went over to the CIA in Langley and had lunch. And I even examined him back in those days on the air in an interview. And I asked him point blank, well, do you ever talk about UFOs, Bruce? Oh, yeah, the topic comes up. I said, well, what about this case or that case? Oh, I might have mentioned it in passing. Well, what do they say? Oh, they were just interested. Really? Well, tell me, Bruce. Because he knew all the players in the field. You ever talk about personalities? Because I was interested to see if I could get him to mention, well, yeah, I know the people at UFO Magazine, and we had broken some big stories then. So anyway, what I find out was that DiPietro and Maccabee had teamed up after they saw this video, went over to New Jersey to see a congressional rep over there who sat on the science committee, and they were both terrified, that a shooting war had started in space, and they wanted him to call for congressional hearings on this. Now, why do I mention this? Well, obviously, for what had happened, but also Vince DiPietro became terrified that he was going to be the subject of an assassination because they had stepped on somebody's toes that did not want this to get out. So suddenly, he's calling Larry King to diss this video and this topic. So I got a chance to question him on the air. And I asked him, I said, well, tell me, Vince, you saw this entire video, right? Yeah. Did you see the video where there were other UFOs in orbit that did this and that? I mean, I've got the tape here, and it's been a while since I watched it, but these were generally the questions I asked him. And he said, yeah. Well, you're saying this is ice, Vince. Tell me, did you see the saucer flying with the cupola on top of the craft? Well, I saw that. You did? Well, what'd you think it was? I don't know what it was. And then King cleared the air, okay? So, these guys have known something for one very damn long time. And it's pure and unadulterated bullshit with the story they've been telling for 70 plus years since Roswell. Gentlemen, please.
So as far as disclosure, let me throw this out there. So Harry Reid puts up $22 million. A portion of that money goes to Skinwalker Ranch and Bigelow. He doesn't need the money, but, you know, who's going to say no to whatever they gave him? I don't know how much they gave him. But when it comes to disclosure, let's say they're not, that all of that isn't run by the government. Let's just say that, okay? So you have Bigelow gets all this money, does all this work, and then George Knapp writes his book that has nothing but stories in it, and then Brandon Fugel buys the whole thing, and now they're TV stars. Who better to disclose but a project like this, right? If there's something there, who better if they're not being controlled by the government, by handlers or whatever, right? You never hear from Bigelow at all. He's never released anything, right? They've only released that paperback book that had stories in it. That's it, stories. So if you want, is there a chance that we can get disclosure, if not for an inexplicable Independence Day thing to happen in front of our eyes as a nation? Can we look to something like a Skinwalker Ranch style thing that might not be run by the government or controlled by the government to do the disclosure?
Well, not to torpedo my paper because it's not yet done, but I'm going to tell you what the real deal is. And then you'll have to read about how I came to those conclusions when I get done. This topic is still one of the most highly classified topics there is today. UFOs, UAPs. This is not anymore in the purview of the military intelligence people, at least not the feds. They farmed this technology out many, many moons ago to private aerospace corporations to attempt to do back engineering. This, whatever this secret is, it's referred to as a core secret. And this core secret is enveloped in an SAP, a special access program. Now, if you read my document that I wrote on the Eric Davis Thomas Wilson affair, you will know what an SAP means. In the auspices of these secret programs, they have what is known as a bigot book. And if your name is not in that bigot book, okay, that you've been read into the program, it doesn't give a tinker's damn who you are, you won't get the information. And Admiral Thomas Wilson, who at the time was the director of the DIA, okay, the DIA, the military's CIA, was told to take his papers and go home. They can't tell him nothing. So ladies and gentlemen, there you go. And if you think that anybody is going to disclose anything, all right, I got a bridge for sale in Brooklyn.
Well,
and
you
it's
know
cheap.
something, Don, we talked about previously, because, you know, you brought up Bigelow. And I said one of my biggest beefs about the show Skinwalker Ranch is how, what's that guy's name? Brendan Fugel bought that property from him without a disclosure. And I'm like, how is it possible? But apparently it is, because in one of the recent episodes, they played back a previous comment from Fugel, where he said, is it possible that Bigelow was aware of things that he kept from me when they sold me the property? And I'm like, how in the F can that happen with a commercial property?
Yeah.
How can anybody not know about Skinwalker Ranch?
Well, right, but that's crap anyway, because supposedly there's people on camera getting hurt and sent to the hospital, and the state of New Mexico or Utah.
It's Utah.
Okay.
Utah.
The state, the governor, the county, the CDC, nobody steps in and says, this guy's head almost exploded and you're allowing him back. It's bullshit. It's bullshit.
Well, I think there is bullshit, but I think there's other stuff going on there. And but I think Fugel needs to be taken to the mat and answer questions, what he knew and when he knew it. Because I'm tired of them presenting information that just leads to more questions rather than answers.
So if you get him to the mat and you get him to say something,
tickle him. You tickle him, Commander.
It's a very effective technique.
Yes.
I would have liked to have had that technique when I was going through the evasion portion or the
sear training. Yeah, sear training.
I didn't get the tickle. I got a couple other things.
Hey, that doesn't tickle.
It didn't tickle at all, as I remember correctly. But I'll keep that if I ever find myself. I had a recent, in fact, Don's seen the papers. I had a bit of a run-in where I was being questioned by some government agents. And at the end of it, they said, well, thank you, Commander Cobra, because that's the name I like to use. And it has a lot of cachet with folks. Thank you very much. And I said, well, I'm just really happy that you guys spoke English as your first language. And they said, oh, this isn't the first time that you've been in a situation like this? Not my first time, no. We know that we're being rolled on this. There's just no doubt about it. There's entertainment value. There's media value to it. It's putting tushes in the seats. It's getting people to tune in. There's advertising dollars. There's no doubt that we're reverse engineering. We reverse engineer everything we can get our hands on. Every war we reversed engineered and looked at materials that the other side was using. There's no doubt that anything that has fallen on this planet, there's no doubt in my mind that we've had those kinds of encounters, and we're doing that.
Not just us either.
Oh, no.
The Russians, the Chinese.
But I got to say, Don, of course, linking back to our first hour, we're rapidly approaching the construct of what those other countries represent. We are going to lose our edge because in this country, you did have the ability to really use some innovation to look at things and have the chance to go do it. I'm not completely uncomfortable that it's being farmed out to industries. My problem that I have is we're being told by our betters, self-appointed betters, what we're going to be allowed to know and understand. And I don't buy that. I don't feel that any reporter has the right to get into classified information and endanger people that are down on the end of the pointy stick doing things for this country. I just don't agree with that. Never have. Now, you have something that goes wrong. You have something that goes right. When the time is right, you can tell that whole story. I mean, there's great analysis of victories and failures that have gone along. We're not going to get the straight scoop on this because in one point, you have a group of people that have lied for so long, generation of lies that have gone on the political spectrum on this particular subject. They don't know how to come clean. Now, I don't know why they think that that's true. There's the old Rand study that's cited from time to time that, the world will collapse, economies will collapse. There'll be a lack of cohesiveness within cultures because religions will be questioned. Well, folks, I think we're there. I think you could drop the news tomorrow, and I don't think it's going to. I think you couldn't have any better backdrop than you have right now for having that. So why are you holding on to that information? I keep coming back to deals have been made, things that I scoffed at in the past, meetings that were supposed to have been held, agreements that were made. I'm easily convinced now that some of the self-appointed betters that are around us, that are peddling a lot of different theories, a lot of different things that we have to do, a lot of lifestyle changes we're going to have to make, would easily make that kind of an agreement, convinced that they're, as the old expression going to go, they will be eaten last in the situation. Yeah, direct analogy to Rod Sterling's Night Gallery, To Serve Man, but I think that's where
Twilight Zone. Yeah.
So
I nerded more than you.
It's interesting that if you watch Congress and they have the different dog and pony shows, we watched the one recently that was about the transgender kids, and they had kids who had issues and such, and Nadler and these pieces of shit say, why are we wasting our time here? We have better things to do than to listen to these stories. And they also said the same thing about what that movie, The Sound of Freedom, was about, right? With the kids on, and they poo-pooed it. They're like, oh, this is all just bull crap. There's nothing to this. It's all horse shit. And yet, when they have Grosh out there and they're talking about biologicals and all this stuff and all second and third hand stories, they're enraptured. Like, well, this is what Congress is for. We're going to have these meetings to show you how open we are about this. But we're not going to be open about, the stuff against the kids and stuff. Oh, that's all just horseshit. There's nothing there. Up to and including the point where Obama said about the father back east who got taken to the ground at the school board because his daughter got raped by a guy dressed in a dress. Obama himself said that's all bullshit. It's all a made-up story. And that's the world that we're living in now, right? Oh, well, we'll talk about the little green men and the biologicals, but we're not going to talk about this real stuff that's happening to our citizens. It's a shit show.
It's kind of a bread and circuses kind of moment, and it does color for me greatly. We're teetering on a lot of things. Now, there may be a great opportunity for some folks that are on the inside to slip some of that out, but I've been left less than convinced. And it seems that Don and Jerry will remember this. It's the flavor of the month. I'm sure you remember that when you're in uniform.
Yep.
Every month, somebody else gets rolled out. Something else gets rolled out. But Mark, all the things you brought up and all the other things that are going on around us, it is the absolute magnitude, the preponderance of all these different things that are pounding on us that I step back and take the same kind of view you do. Why are we talking about this now? Why does this have attention? And other serious things are not getting attention.
I gotta say one thing quickly. The flavor of the month. When you said that, do you know what immediately popped into my mind?
I'm almost afraid to find out. But
this is a name. This is a name from the past.
Here it comes.
Admiral Zumwalt. When he allowed the Navy boys to grow beards. Oh my God, was everybody pissed off?
You know what came to my mind? I can eat 50 eggs.
You know what Bailey's flavor of the month is? Pebbles.
Yes, that's every night.
So, crap out of rocks.
She brings my wife a rock in every night.
Absolutely. So, Commander, you brought up this interesting aspect of this. We have Grosh and all these guys up there who are getting just the spotlight, and yet we wonder, well, where's the punk bass player? And that whole thing, I forget the not A-Tip, but that whole group who were going to make
they got all the
Christopher Mellon, Hal Puthoff,
and they're supposed to be straight
Lou
shooters,
Elizondo.
Right? So where are they? And then the non-straight shooters, but they've been around a while. Greer, he's been trying to do this for 30 years, and he's off to the side going, "What about me? What about me?"
Well, Gracious, the thing that freaks me out about him, Commander, and I do want to know your thoughts on him, is he seems to be a guy that doesn't know a goddamn thing, wasn't involved with anything directly. He's like a purveyor of information, and that's all he is. Am I right or wrong on that?
Okay, so a key part of what you just said, the purveyor of information, that's what our whole media has become. There's very little actual factual part that's in there. It picks up, it's the snowball rolling down the hill. It picks up lots of things. It picks up snow. It picks up any other debris that's there, and it's gathering speed as it goes down. And as often happens out of a news cycle, it smashes into a bunch of little pieces, and we look for the next snowball to come down.
Right.
I don't know the gentleman. When I watched, Don is my expert and professional in this, but I spent a great deal of my time in the military doing investigations. Nothing sexy. It was always those things like possible spousal abuse, theft, all the things, all the glamorous stuff that always falls onto an aviator or a person that's on a ship that's on shore, and it has to be looked at. And you get a little manual, and you got to go through it. And you ask really basic questions, and you really start to line up facts. And you have to present facts before you could ever possibly put your conclusions. So if you came out and said this happened, the first thing the CO was going to ask you if he or she was worth their weight. Okay, where's your proof? Well, I've got this picture. I've got this piece of testimony, an affidavit from the person that was the wrong party. It's backed up by a local police report. You could go through all the stuff, and it was there. We don't do that on any of this. And the question you asked, Mark, about where's all the other folks that were part of this, not that long ago and long ago, no one's asking outside of groups like us on these shows. Look, I told you, I don't need outside verification for what I believe. Yes, it would be great to get down to ground truth, because I think when you get down to ground truth, you start to get the solutions. If we got something really bad coming ahead, then I want to be able to handle it. I don't want to throw up. We've danced around this one. I believe in climate change. I'm just not sold that it's man-made. Okay, I don't think we're doing a really good job with the environment. I never thought we did a good job with the environment. I have a hard time believing that man can control the forces of nature that are on this planet to the degree. But let's just put all my personal problems, as some czars would say that I have, emissaries to the government would say. Okay, if it's true, how can you not have this country's military at its absolute strongest point to force other nations that are polluting at rates greater than we're gone down, and the rest of the world has gone up in what they have identified as they believe is the problem source. How do you convince these people not to do that anymore unless you're strong and you have your stuff together? All of this comes down. It's not consistent. It's don't line up.
About the money.
I know it's about money, and I know we're printing it left and right, and its value is going through the toilet. That's not enough. It's not just money. It's not just power. It's the level of absolute insanity that is going on is staggering to me. But yet we seem resilient enough to be able to figure out a way to work around it. But I keep coming back to this. These folks come out, they get prime time, but what's the follow-up? I haven't heard one part of follow-up on this. There's no more reports coming out of Congress. You see testimony, you see a couple news clips. There's always going to be somebody who's going to be the funny guy, who's going to make fun of the person that's there or ask questions. But there's no follow-up, there's no depth, it's no real investigation. It's theater.
Well,
it
is theater, and
here's some level or distract us.
Here's the thing, Commander, that I have problems with is when he was asked on that by that committee, if because he said he gave the information of where these ships, whatever they are being held. Right? He said, I gave this information to so and so. Didn't give a name, just said who that person was, what they were. Nothing. We've heard nothing on that.
Well, you're not going to.
That's dumb.
Well, it's
if that person can be brought up in a committee meeting like that, we should be made aware of what they know and what they're doing with it.
These are not trying to get to a solution. This is to fill airtime. This is to present a distraction. Just add
Wagging
more
the
to what's
dog,
going on.
which is what I've said. I thought it was.
It's not an end goal to get to something, because you're not saying we're going to get to the truth or we're going to get to what the end result is.
Why would the government change their spots now? They're not going to. They're going to hold these dog and pony shows and say, "Ooh, this is cool," but they're not going to give you any more information, right? They may release a couple of videos to Lou or somebody, right? And it's a joke, dude. Don't expect anything from this or Skinwalker Ranch or Bentwaters or any of that stuff, man. Don't expect any sort of completion. They don't want a completion. It's all part of let's distract them. Let's distract them.
But here's the problem that I have is that why they're doing it, is it because of the fact, and this is something Don and I've talked about previously, is that what is known is so horrifying that we should never know what's really going on.
I think that is a fair supposition.
That's the core secret.
And they don't want us talking about what's going on. When's the last time you saw any footage from the Ukraine of bombs and things? When's the last time you saw anybody?
You can see them almost daily done on YouTube because these soldiers post the videos. If you go,
no, I get it. If you go out and look for it, but I mean the mainstream and all, you won't find
mainstream nothing.
You won't find it. When's the last time anybody actually talked about the $32 trillion that we all owe?
How much?
It's all horse shit.
How much do we owe?
$32 trillion.
Oh, come on. Really?
Yeah.
Come on. Really?
That's how much you personally owe.
Yeah, that money doesn't. People forget the U.S. government doesn't have money. They use our money.
And there's
That's
plenty of it.
taxpayer
So
dollars.
quit complaining.
Quit your complaining. Listen to Mark.
That's right.
Just
Keep
sign
that
the goddamn
blood sugar
name.
down.
Let me run a course line with you then. Let's say it is pretty horrible. How long before, because I see us in an inevitable march as a society, we need to get away from personal freedom, personal liberty, personal accountability. So are we being set up to reveal part of this absolute horribleness? And it's only the government, it's only a world government that can negotiate and provide our security.
Okay, let me come in as the conspiracy theorist.
There are no conspiracies, Don, and there's no coincidences. But go ahead, sir.
Right. The first objective that they must find a way to do is to make it illegal for the American public to legally own and bear firearms. The push has been going on. I've watched it intensify. What just happened in New Mexico, okay, with the governor's proclamation that she is suspending basically the First and Second Amendment. this is a trial. This is a test to see what happens.
I think you're right.
And believe me when I tell you, they want to see the American people disarmed, because as long as the American people are armed, they can't ultimately do what they want to do. Hey, Chris DiPerno, okay, one of our KGRA hosts, all right, told me a few days ago that Governor Heckle, or however the hell you say her name in the state of New York, are building quarantine camps. They are attempting, okay, to pass legislation that somebody can make an allegation against you that you have some type of disease or something, where the local authorities will literally be able to enter your house without a warrant and carry you away and place you in a camp, a quarantine camp. Now, according to DiPerno, my state, the state of California, Governor Newsom is looking at this to see what happens. Now, could they do that in a place like, what the hell, Tennessee, West Virginia, Alabama, Texas? Unlikely, because they would probably be met with armed resistance. Well, if you don't have the means to have an armed resistance, you can do that kind of bullshit.
Well, the first thing that they started this all on was the freedom of speech through the social platforms, right? That's where this all started, was because of COVID and the fight against the schools and all this. They cracked down on all the socials. You can't say this, blah, blah, blah. People got kicked off and all that. So it's just an extenuation of that, right? That's all this is. Seeing how far
we got Fauci out there again this week. Saying masks.
Freaking Fauci says on a 1-to-1 masks work, but on a 1-to-10 they don't. And I'm looking at it going, what the hell are you talking about? Why doesn't it work if I'm in a room of 10 people and I'm wearing the mask with 10 people and they aren't, or with one person and they aren't? You freaking moron. And yet people are going to go, thank you.
Mark, think about, though, you have so much other traffic jamming the circuit.
Yeah.
That the absolute idiocy of someone who has a medical degree, purported to have a medical degree, makes that kind of a statement. Has an arc of statements that go on both sides of the issue.
Yes.
Well, gentlemen, we are getting down to about the last roughly 20 seconds or so of the show. I'd love to go another hour. We're not going to be able to do it. As a matter of fact, we got to sign off here. But Commander Cobra, Jerry, Mark, it's been great, buddies. We'll be back next week with another edition of Dark Matters Radio. Have a great week, guys.
Arrivederci, America.